Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1701. Oof, getting up there. The topic is training and the title is, Should You Wear Wrist Wraps When Performing Bench Press? So today's question came from our live monthly programming service. With that service, you get brand new programming every 4 weeks based on a couple different goals we have on the website. Powerlifting, which is also kind of like power building depending on how much you eat. Female shape development, pure bodybuilding, functional longevity, and functional athleticism. Those are kind of 5 main topics, and they've been serving pretty much everybody so far. So I love it. So I think we're going to keep those for now. And along with that service, as I said, you get brand new programming every 4 weeks, and you get unlimited Q&A. You can ask me absolutely anything, and I will answer it. I go through and answer the questions at least once a week. I try to get in there as soon as I can anytime a question is answered. But the idea is you can ask a question, your own question, and you will get a direct, personalized answer. So you get great programming plus the ability to ask questions. Pretty freaking awesome. Pretty good service there. And it's a cheaper service than getting direct one-on-one programming where the training program is written specific for you and there's nutrition program written specific for you. If you're part of the live monthly programming, you can still ask nutrition questions and your nutrition is kind of self-guided. On our website, we have the free nutrition education page. The first link on that page is a description of how you can write your own nutrition program to figure out how many calories you need depending on your goals, protein, and meal distribution, all the other details. And then you follow that, but you can still ask questions if you want to as part of the service. So today, I'm going to read the entry from one of the participants, and I'll read my answer. They wrote, "Hello, Rob. Yesterday I lost one of my gloves at the gym. That meant I had to go through the bench press session without them. I noticed that I felt less strong during the bench press movement. The bar felt too smooth in my hand, less stable. It felt like I had to use my forearms more to get a good, stable grip. This morning, my wrists hurt slightly. 1% pain. It's nothing, but I did notice. What about it? Is it recommended having gloves for bench press or ... so maybe or something else? I don't know how much of this is simply not being used to bare hands and what is specific morphology, etc." And they wrote, "Thank you." So I said, bummer you lost your glove and bummer your wrist hurts. So lots of bummers. The gloves were likely doing 2 things for this person, and that's going to be kind of the answer to today's question. The one thing they would have been doing was providing wrist support and bracing stabilization, to at least to some degree. Most lifting gloves, they cross over the crease of your wrist. So if you look at your wrist right now, unless you're driving, and that's going to cause you a wreck, but if you look at the palm side of your wrist, if you have your palm facing towards you, at the bottom of your palm, you're going to see crease lines where your hand kind of connects into your wrist. Most gloves will cover over that crease. That crease is there because that's where your wrist bends at. And if the glove covers over that crease, over that bend, it's going to provide to some degree some stability and bracing at that bend. Like putting a belt on around your waist for squatting. Right? Is your midsection may bend, but the belt helps kind of hold you in place. A glove would have, to at least some degree, helped to keep your wrist in place. And then the other thing the glove would have done is it would have made the bar feel thicker. Now, both of those are actually significant. As for providing wrist support, lots of heavy lifters, especially powerlifters and strong men, strong women, they wear what's called wrist wraps whenever they do heavy bench presses or overhead presses or basically any kind of heavy press. And that is something that does not cover the palm of your hand, so it's not a glove. It's essentially just like a stretchy, thick material. If you don't know what they are, like in the Q&A document for the live monthly program, I gave them YouTube videos to send them directly to like links that'll help. So for one link that you can check out if you want to is Brutal Iron Gym. Go on YouTube, by the way. Search Brutal Iron Gym. How to use wrist wraps for greatest tightness. Now, the second half of that title is called X-Wrap Technique. So this is a video of me actually showing how to put on wrist wraps. That'll actually help you see what a wrist wrap is. And then it'll show you the best technique. Because some people, when they try to put on wrist wraps, are absolute morons. That sounds very aggressive. I probably didn't need to say it that way. But the whole damn point of the thing is that it helps hold your wrist straight. So you have to be over the crease where your wrist actually bends. People will wrap the damn things underneath the crease, and I'm like, I don't know how the hell you think that's helping. Like, it's one of those things, like, the first time I ever saw somebody do it, I was like, is it a joke? Are they aware of what they're doing? Like, it made no sense to me, even when I was like 16. Like 18 is when I got internet at my house. But I would see people, or like people at the gym, I would see them putting them on, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's not even crossing the wrist joint. How the hell is that going to help? If anything, if you just wrap the damn thing so freaking tight below the wrist joint, you're just cutting off blood flow to your hand. That's not going to help. No, you can't lift with a numb hand. So that video, me getting way off track here, that video is going to help you see what a wrist wrap is and actually how to put the damn thing on the right way. So again, it's a YouTube video, Brutal Iron Gym, how to use wrist wraps for greatest tightness. X-Wrap Technique. Okay. But a lot of heavy lifters, powerlifters, strong men, strong women, people who just lift heavy crap in the gym, they wear wrist wraps because it does provide stabilization. When you're doing heavy presses, you want your wrist to remain as neutral as possible. You cannot have it to where like the wrist and the top of the hand are totally flat, because then the bar would fold your thumb off and basically rip your thumb off. So there has to be some degree of kind of like extension at the wrist. There's a little bit of an extension at the wrist, but you want that as small of an extension as possible. And what this means is we don't want our wrists to bend back. So if you were to try to do a push-up on the wall, okay, put your hands on the wall to do a push-up, your hand would be bending back quite a bit, right? Now put your hand where you're trying to punch the wall. Like you're putting your hand towards the wall, like your knuckles to the wall. You're going to notice your wrist is much straighter, right? We would want to be closer to that straighter position than we'd want to be bent back. That bent back position, when the wrist joint bends like that, that likely means the bar is no longer directly over the wrist joint. It's actually rolled up in towards like the base of your fingers. That's going to be much weaker, and it's going to hurt like hell. You're basically jamming the back of your hand into your wrist. It's not a great position. So that's going to be very painful, and you're just going to be weaker. So I wrote, if the gloves were giving him enough support, that's great. Get a new pair and keep using those. Or they could, if they want, they could get a pair of wrist wraps and use those specifically for pressing movements. So wearing gloves or the wrist wraps would be a great way to, it kind of depends on how much wrist support you want. Gloves are going to give you very minimal wrist support, and they do help, prevent calluses and whatnot. So sometimes people in certain professions, they like that. Sometimes people just are germaphobes. They don't want to touch all the different equipment in the gym, which is kind of funny because then you have this sweaty glove that stays in your gym bag for like 6 months to a year. But for whatever reason, if you want to wear gloves, wear gloves. But they're going to be a minimal level of support, whereas wrist wraps are the extreme, most direct way to get support. If you use either one of them, it's not going to decrease the strength development for the wrist stabilizing muscles. Just like if you wear a belt when you squat, it doesn't decrease the strength development of the abdominal muscles. They've done enough, EKG studies and all this stuff to prove that that's just not true. So wearing a belt doesn't make you weaker. Wearing wrist straps or wearing gloves doesn't make you weaker. You're just not used to the sensation that you're going to feel without them. So it's more like a what are you used to, not used to kind of thing. Not that something feels weak. You just maybe aren't used to having to use those things at that percentage in those positions, so you're going to be more aware of them. The use of gloves or wrist wraps, they just help provide protection so you don't have to worry about whether or not you're getting in or out of position, and you definitely don't have to worry about whether or not they'll impact overall strength development. With that said, though, it's not uncommon for people to wait until their heaviest or most demanding sets, and that could be a high-intensity, high-rep set. Just something where you feel like your wrist position might be at risk. You can then put on the wrist straps. The reason why is often wrist straps are kind of like a painful thing to put on. They're not super comfortable to leave on for a long period of time. Like 2-3 minutes tops, and then you're going to want to get the things off you. So people don't typically put them on until they feel like they're actually going to be beneficial. With my live monthly programming participants, I gave them links for demonstration of proper wrist position when benching. You can just go on YouTube if you're a listener to the podcast and search that phrase, and you'll find some videos. So proper wrist positioning when benching. And then I also gave them an introduction to wrist wraps video, but I made a note that the way that the people wrap wrist wraps in 99% of videos is trash. So I wanted them to check out the video that I already told you about, the X-wrap technique, so that way they could see that. The other component we said was that the gloves would have made the bar feel thicker. So what you were holding or squeezing would have felt thicker. So therefore, when you had to remove the glove, it would have changed the diameter of what you felt within your grip. The diameter of barbells can vary quite a bit, between 25 millimeter to 29 millimeter. There's other specialty bars that are up to like 32 millimeters. 25 is like a women's Olympic lifting bar, so it's very small. But a couple, like 1 to 2 millimeters of a bar, when you're used to using specific barbells, that can absolutely change the way it feels. The smaller the diameter of a bar, the more wrist control you need. Even 2 to 3 millimeter change would cause some degree of differential way in which the bar would feel in your hands. So that's likely also what they felt as it feeling weird or different, and likely why they would have had an increased level of fatigue is because if it was a smaller thing to now hold on to, their wrist would have had to work a little harder to stabilize it to even just the smallest degree. And also, their pain could be more so related to their wrist was bent back more than they were used to without that glove support. So that's actually likely where they got the wrist pain from. So that was a little fun kind of information. If you're looking at the question of should you wear wrist wraps when performing bench press, it's up to you. I typically don't recommend wrist wraps until somebody, if they say they have wrist pain and I know their wrists are in the healthy position, I'll say, hey, why don't you get on the wrist strap? Maybe that'll help. Usually they just need to develop more muscle tissue around, the area and have more control. I typically don't see wrist pain or wrist issues being an issue once position is corrected until somebody's benching over their body weight. And then you could probably consider wearing a wrist strap. Is it going to hurt to wear it too early? Hell no. Wear it whenever you want to. If it's something that interests you and you want to try it and you experience, destabilization or wrist pain, then absolutely throw them on, give them a try, see what you think. You can get some cheap ones off Amazon or wherever you live. If you have if it's more expensive for you to get access to them, you can just wrap some ACE bandages around your wrist. That can help as well. And then also, whatever you have available, depending on where you live. But putting some type of bracing around the wrist isn't necessarily a bad idea, but I would wait to do it until you felt like, you were stronger than body weight for bench pressing, and or that if you started experiencing kind of instability in your wrist and or pain in your wrist, then go ahead and start wrapping them. In general, most people will benefit from them as they get stronger and stronger and stronger, just to have more protection, more stabilization. So it's not uncommon. Actually, pretty much anybody who competes in powerlifting wears them. Pretty much anybody that competes in strongman competitions, strongwoman competitions wears them. So it's not a sign of being weak. I mean, the strongest people in the world wear them. So definitely not an issue if you were to use them. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. Give you some good background information. If you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, email me at brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please share it. If you like the podcast, please consider donating, which you can do on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. And then if you like the podcast and the information we share, you can also find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and please follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.